The basic idea is it is bizarre that in the echo of the battle over the lab leak hypothesis has not even yet died down, right? We are still finding stuff in these emails that reveals, just how far off the public narrative was from what people understood behind the scenes.
You mean the Fauci emails?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So the question is, why are people not now awake to all of the broken processes that allowed that to go on for so long with such a preposterous public story? Why have we not said, well, geez.
Well, you could, I guess it was fine that you were talking about that, but you certainly can't talk about any of the stuff you're talking about now.
Right. And so, I don't know, let's just do this here as long as we're on the topic. So one interesting case, one of the podcasts that was taken down by YouTube involved Robert Malone, who is the inventor of mRNA vaccine technology.
Incidentally, still available on the audio podcasts and also available on Odyssey now.
Also available on Odyssey. So check it out. Mm-hmm. So Robert Malone in this podcast talks about the toxicity of spike protein, which is something that actually there's a fair amount of evidence of different kinds for. And this is a very frightening piece of the puzzle because the spike protein, it appears, does not stay resident. Some of it probably does, but not all of the spike protein stays resident in the cells that take up the vaccine mRNA. And so it goes floating around the body and it seems to do damage, right? In any case.
So it's two different issues, though. Does it stay localized and is it cytotoxic?
Right. Well, here's these are two things that do not match the design. The intended design of the vaccine would be...
But the particular thing that you led with, and I think that you're going to, is just about cytotoxicity. It's not about localization.
Right.
Yeah.
In any case, PolitiFact, which is a Facebook property, I believe.
It is either a Facebook property or it is actively hired by Facebook, and it is at least one of the outfits that does the fact-checking for Facebook.
So it evaluated this claim and declared it false, which is bizarre because there's plenty of evidence for it. And at the very least, if whatever experts it's using, assuming it uses experts, were uncompelled by the evidence, then what they should have said was, this is undetermined because here's the evidence and here's why we're not convinced. But that's not what they said, right? They said it was false. PolitiFact, of course, though, also once checked the lab leak hypothesis, and they declared it, I quote, a pants on fire lie. Right now, that's an amazing level of what's the term? Ridicule. It's ridicule. They ridiculed the hypothesis, right? And so here's the question.
So were you able to find this, either you or Zach?
I can't find a screenshot of it. I see it quoted in various places, but
we'll try to find it and link it in the program description.
But in any case, the point is, look, you've got Robert Malone, the inventor of mRNA vaccine technology, making a point about spike protein, which is squarely in his area of expertise. And PolitiFact, which is I don't even know what, has decided that he is saying something false. How it would know that, I can't imagine. But
if I remember correctly, and I think I did write this down, the PolitiFact fact-checking piece refers to experts. That's it.
Man.
Just experts. Vague, anonymous, not to be found experts.
They know a guy.
Yeah, they know a guy, but guess what? I know you. You know Dr. Malone, and frankly, I trust you two a hell of a lot more than vague, nameless, faceless experts who are just, once again, doing a political bidding rather than scientific bidding.
Right. Well, I mean, that's the irony of Robert Malone being fact-checked by experts on the Dark Horse podcast, which was way ahead on the lab leak hypothesis. It's like, didn't anybody in the organization even notice what podcast they were going after and who it was that they were claiming was saying false things? It's like it doesn't add up. There's no calculus, right? At best, if they had somebody who was highly expert, who disagreed with Malone, right? Then the point is there is disagreement over this. That's as far as they could go, right? But the idea that this is a place in which,
this is not settled science. Good. Let's do that.
Yeah.
How about put that at the top of any of this, where we are discussing hypotheses. This is not settled science. Well, yes, duh. Yeah. We know that's the point of discussing hypotheses.
Right. And the fact is, of course, that undermines the whole purpose of such a thing, which is if unsettled science
undermines the purpose of the fact checking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fact checking is supposedly about improving the conversation by limiting what can be said. And of course, if you've got a whole landscape of unsettled science, then pretty much everything in that landscape ought to be discussable.
Well, I, for one, feel improved.
Right. So anyway, in some sense, they are, at the very least, working to justify their own existence by claiming that you can limit the conversation in productive ways. But the irony of, who they're fact checking and, it's jaw dropping.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It really is. Let's end with a little bit from 1984, shall we?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. We have read little tiny excerpts from 1984 before, I see, in episodes 22 and 43. It's unfortunately, I do, as we've talked about before, I do think Brave New World is a bit of a better descriptor of the kind of landscape we're in, but Orwell's no dummy. And here, I wanted to vet with you before I did this, but we didn't have time, so I'm just going to go ahead and share these two. This is a copy of 1984 that was my mother's. She got a new copy and gave us this one. So this is a lovely old copy. The search for new weapons continues on cease. Oh, wait, no. Sorry. Hold on. Here we go. Science in the old sense has almost ceased to exist. In Newspeak, there is no word for science. The empirical method of thought on which all the scientific achievements of the past were founded is opposed to the most fundamental principles of INGSOC. That's the English Socialist Party. And it's the dominant party in 1984. And even technological progress only happens when its products can in some way be used for the diminution of human liberty. In all the useful arts, the world is either standing still or going backwards. The fields are cultivated with horseplows while books are written by machinery. But in matters of vital importance, meaning in effect war and police espionage, the empirical approach is still encouraged or at least tolerated. The two aims of the party are to conquer the whole surface of the earth and to extinguish once and for all the possibility of independent thought. There are therefore two great problems which the party is concerned to solve. One is how to discover against his will what another human being is thinking, and the other is how to kill several 100 million people in a few seconds without giving warning beforehand. Insofar as scientific research still continues, this is its subject matter. The scientist of today is either a mixture of psychologist and inquisitor, studying with extraordinary minuteness the meaning of facial expressions, gestures, and tones of voice, and testing the truth-producing effects of drugs, shock therapy, hypnosis, and physical torture, or he is a chemist, physicist, or biologist, concerned only with such branches of his special subject as are relevant to the taking of life. That's obviously hyperbole if you try to map that perfectly onto what is happening today, but it is precisely the purview of these granting agencies, NSF, NIH, DoD, etc., to decide what kinds of projects they are going to fund. It is not just that they are saying, bring everything to us, and then we're going to choose, depending on what directorate it is, 20%, 8%, whatever. They actually decide what types of questions you can even write a grant for. There are certain types of research that you just can't write a grant for. And it's not at this level, but we are certainly seeing basic research being edited, being curated, being changed by the fact of who is in charge of the agencies. And we know for sure that one of the people who's been in charge of one of the agencies for many decades has not been telling us the truth. So, final quote from 1984. It was only after a decade of national wars, civil wars, revolutions, and counter-revolutions in all parts of the world that INGSOC and its rivals emerged as fully worked out political theories. But they had been foreshadowed by the various systems, generally called totalitarian, which had appeared earlier in the century, and the main outlines of the world which would emerge from the prevailing chaos had long been obvious. What kind of people would control this world had been equally obvious. The new aristocracy was made up for the most part of bureaucrats, scientists, technicians, trade union organizers, publicity experts, sociologists, teachers, journalists, and professional politicians. These people, whose origins lay in the salaried middle class and the upper grades of the working class, have been shaped and brought together by the barren world of monopoly industry and centralized government. As compared with their opposite numbers in past ages, they were less avaricious, less tempted by luxury, hungrier for pure power, and above all, more conscious of what they were doing and more intent on crushing opposition. This last difference was cardinal. By comparison with what with that existing today, all the tyrannies of the past were half-hearted and inefficient. The ruling groups were always infected to some extent by liberal ideas, and were content to leave loose ends everywhere, to regard only the overt act, and to be uninterested in what their subjects were thinking. Even the Catholic Church of the Middle Ages was tolerant by modern standards. Part of the reason for this was that in the past, no government had the power to keep its citizens under constant surveillance. The invention of print, however, made it easier to manipulate public opinion, and the film and the radio carried the process further. With the development of television and the technical advance which made it possible to receive and transmit simultaneously on the same instrument, private life came to an end. Every citizen, or at least every citizen important enough to be worth watching, could be kept for 24 hours a day under the eyes of the police and in the sound of official propaganda, with all other channels of communication closed. The possibility of enforcing not only complete obedience to the will of the state, but complete uniformity of opinion on all subjects now existed for the first time. He's writing in 1949. He foresees a lot, and he doesn't see exactly what we've landed at in 2021, of course. But have we lost all privacy? Many of us? Yes, we have. Some of us have made choices that allow us to keep small shreds of it. But this is unfortunately prescient.
So he's writing 2 years before Solomon Asch did his experiment. That's amazing because in part he's describing both of these things, the loss of privacy and the control of thought through enforced conformity.
That's right.
Wow. Well, that's a cheery thought.
Yes. Welcome to episode 84 of the Dark Horse Podcast.